Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fashion Fridays. Today we've got Maya Kaaki with us. Would you like to introduce yourself, Maya?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Frankie, so much for having me here. I'm very excited. My name is Maya, and I'm not keeping it real. Basically, I'm a 3D designer, virtual reality architect, and a metaverse artist. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk all things fashion, metaverse, architecture, and art at the end of the day. So thank you.
Amazing. So before you started doing metaverse architecture and building these spaces for not keeping it real, I love your light in the background. That's super
Thank
cool. The
you.
branding is amazing.
Represent.
Um, so you trained as a traditional architect, is that correct? Can you
Yes,
tell
yes.
us a little bit about being a traditional architect and maybe some of the limitations of being an architect and what kind of where that light bulb moment came where you suddenly realized actually online has more potential?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I studied interior architecture. I worked in the field for around 3, 4 years. It was wonderful. I loved my experiment in that field. Um, I think I always knew that I wanted to really just focus on the conceptual part of design and the architecture rather than the site visits and the actual laws of constructions and the gravity of things. So I think
Mm,
I always knew I wanted to really focus on conceptual design and art.
mhm,
And when I started reading more about, virtual reality and augmented reality and all these emerging technologies, I was like, wait a minute, like we can actually create worlds and environments, and really the limitation is just our imaginations and our dreams. So
mhm.
why not really just dedicate my studies there and learn more stuff and yeah, create awesome things in the virtual world.
Yeah, no, and I have a semi-similar background, although I definitely didn't get as far as you. I first realized that spaces could be a place for storytelling because I was really interested in film sets. So
Mhm.
whether it was Lord of the Rings or a James Bond set and how you could create these worlds.
Yes.
And and so I thought, architecture would be such a great subject to study at university. And then I arrived at university and it was all about, forget about your world, design fantasies. You've got limitations of budget and time and things go wrong. And then they showed all of these very kind of like brutal kind of concrete blocks and like, this is what you
Yes.
will build as an architect. And I thought, oh no, I was
No.
imagining a beautiful green city. And I'm
Yes.
not designing a city, I'm building one building, which is like not, because there are so many financial constraints, it just doesn't look as nice.
Exactly. Like you said, the budget and the financial, constraint can really limit what you really want to do in that design and
Mhm.
that story you're trying to turn into space. So yeah,
Ooh.
I think it's definitely more interesting to see the freedom that
Mhm.
VR and the virtual world and the metaverse offer for us.
Yeah. And so when did you first start to explore this world of virtual? What were the first tools that you started to learn to kind of get into the space?
Yeah, well, funny story. My first ever experience with these technologies, it was actually with augmented reality, not VR.
Mhm.
And I was in a concert. It was back in 2017, and I was in an Eminem concert, and there was this Eminem application where you can take your phone and it kind of triggers to what the music in the background is playing, and it
Mhm.
starts emerging different kinds of visuals and art, and it relates also with the lyrics of the songs. So that just really stuck with me since
Mm.
2017, and I started reading more about it. And yeah, I decided to go in 2020 to Barcelona to study
Mhm.
in IED University virtual reality for design.
Mhm.
And yeah, ever since, just exploring new experiences, working with different clients, There's new stuff every single day, so trying to keep up with those. But yeah, it's mainly like a mix of AR and VR that really got me going at first and learning those stuff.
Perfect. And maybe you have some projects that you can share with us and maybe walk through like what a typical process looks like. You've got a client that comes to you and they want to create an augmented reality or virtual reality space, and how you start from like conceptualizing and taking their wild fantasies and starting to brainstorm with them to actually building something out. And yeah, it'd be amazing to see some examples.
Of course, of course. Let me share my screen quickly. So, can you see my screen actually?
Yes.
Nice. So, yeah, I mean, I got the opportunity to work with really amazing clients. One of them was IE University here in Madrid, so it really tackles, the subject of education and what we can do in education and the metaverse or in virtual reality. I also had the chance to work with you, Francesca, on fashion products, fashion retail, and the metaverse. And basically, it's like really kind of taking the story of your client, taking the story of the individual or the brand or the company that wants to create themselves in the metaverse and really transform that into space. So take those keynotes, those keywords, those mood boards that look and feel that the client is projecting and really try to model it, texture it into the world that client is actually envisioning themselves in.
Mhm.
So basically what we do is whether it's a metaverse architecture, it's a VR or XR experience, or it's just like a 3D animation, whether image or video, we really try to focus on the storytelling of it all, of the narrative, and to really put that into virtual worlds. So one of our clients was actually IE, and it's a university here in Madrid, and we really wanted to take the iconic IE logo and turn it into space. So we took the I, for example, in the logo, and we turned it into the tower that already exists right now in Madrid. And we kind of unleashed those more architectural structures into what a floating architecture can look like, or what, the diversity narrative that IE has, how we can kind of put those into different globes around the user that they can jump on, with different words like hola, bonjour, hello, and,
Mhm.
really focus on that as a structure. We worked also with a startup called Squawk, and they really wanted to create their virtual offices because they work remotely, and we kind of created what their offices would look like in the virtual world. And their name is Quack, which means, like what a bird sounds like. And we try to create that into nests,
Mm.
and where the birds would reside as an architecture. So really, it's all about the client and all about the people you're working with. And of course, this rings a bell.
Yes.
Our beautiful Fashion XR store where we, made the ceiling our sea. We dived deep into the waters of the oceans, and we created a safe space for, all-inclusive fashion products and designs. Um, and yeah, it goes on and on. We created also like social and community VR experiences. So a place where you can have, a home or a neighborhood. We worked with this with Union and Linking Realities, and also VR experiences of science. For example, I worked with this with an amazing designer called Martina. We basically created what the inside human body looks like. And that's the beauty of VR, how you can take different perspectives of different creatures and worlds and spaces and really transform that into space. So yeah, I think everyone has a story to tell, and we really try to make that story into an unreal reality in the
Yeah.
virtual world.
Amazing. And so can you tell us a little bit more about the storytelling piece of like uncovering what is the story that they're trying to tell and then converting the story to a space?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it starts with who you are as a brand. Like, for example, my name is not keeping it real because I like to, play around with the reality of things, with construction. I.e., they have a different story, you have a different story. Each one has a different story to tell, whether as an individual or a brand. And we try to take that through, for example, the logo, the brand identity, the color palette, the slogan and the motto that they say throughout their brands, whether it's a beauty brand or whether it's a tourism brand or a business brand. So it really depends on them and what they're trying to say. And then we turn them into a more concrete example of mood boards of spaces. And then into more schematic, like try to sketch some ideas, create some 3D puzzles of how that space would look like. And also like the functions, like what do we want to implement in the metaverse? Is it just a retail store? Is it also like I don't know, like a mini game as well? To really try to kind of take those functions and understand really what we want to do with them. And then the execution and the construction comes. So we turn to Blender, for example. We work on Blender 3D, and we then turn to Unity for game engines and to make it come to life, and the
Wow.
magic happens.
And what are the challenges of using like Blender and Unity? Is it challenging? Does it take a really long time? Is it expensive, or do you think this is something that is accessible to people and all businesses?
It's both, I would say. So for example, in the financial part, Blender is free, so anyone can download Blender and try to enjoy it, and unleash their creativity there. But I think also it's important to take lots of courses. This is where you also have to like maybe pay a bit more to really understand how to model, because in VR and in the metaverse, you really need to be as optimized as you can.
Mhm.
Optimization is key, so we can't just like create so many faces and so many polygons. We sometimes need to count how many polygons we're drawing. So
What is a
uh,
polygon for those who don't know?
yeah, so a polygon is basically when you draw a cube
Mhm.
or or a plane inside your 3D. So the polygon is basically that face of the cube. So you would have, for example, four faces. And in spatial, for example, the metaverse spatial, you have a limit of, I don't know, 500K polygons. So you
Mhm.
have to like make sure that you're not over exceeding that.
So is it like the 3D equivalent of pixels?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly, actually.
Ah,
Exactly. And the more the model, the more the shape is organic, the more it's gonna have polygons, because a line has two dots, for example, and one line. But when you have a curve, that would have more points, more lines, and that would mean that it
and I
has more
think
polygons.
that's what, when we worked together and we created the Atlantis underwater world, we wanted to be very flowy and everything to have like a smooth, rounded lines and things like that. And then suddenly we had to go into Unity and we realized, oh no, we need to make more blocky shapes. And that's what we wanted to
Yes.
get away from, because in the real
Yes,
world, everything is block, you know.
that's
Um,
true.
so that's the trade-off there.
Exactly. But I think now, like, the more these technologies are evolving, the more there's new ideas and plugins and add-ons that are coming to life every day. I think we're gonna reach that point where hopefully optimization isn't something to worry about. And like in the near future, we can, like, the technology will help us to design more of these, dream
Mhm.
ideas that we have and put them into those
Yeah.
worlds.
And apart from like the beautiful space, in terms of having people in there, sometimes you go into some metaverses and it's completely empty. Other times there are loads of people and some people are dancing, other people are like running around and it's chaos.
Yes.
And then you have in games, for example, non-player characters where you can walk up to them and have a conversation. What do you think is the right balance in terms of like a good user experience? Maybe do you need to limit the amount of people in the space? Do you need to have a space that is for a specific function? So you say this is a space for dancing and you can do that.
Exactly.
Or, you know, can you tell us a little bit about that, how you design spaces for uses, basically?
Exactly. So, for example, we designed a classroom for IE, and we couldn't have, we couldn't make it a public space because we don't want, random avatars and people just coming in the space and exactly like you said, being chaotic when the actual function and the need and the whole point of this space is to study and to go to a classroom. So it really matters like what the function is. Or for example, when we designed the Save the Last Dance on the rooftop of New York. So that could be a super public place where people can just come and dance around and just like walk through that metaverse. So it really, really depends on the function, and that's the beauty of it. So you have the option to make it private and only share it with people that you want to share it with, or you can make it you make it private and you share it with the people you want to share it with, or you can like make it public and anyone can join from all around the world and just
Nice. And
explore.
so a hypothetical example, imagine Art Basel Miami came to you and they said, we've got an amazing event, it's in December, we're going to have all of these artists and people in the fashion industry and from different industries coming to Miami when it's cold everywhere else in the world, and it's going to be a fun festival. But not everyone will be able to travel there, so we want to create a virtual world, and we want people to create their little booths and their exhibition areas. What would be your process of working with them and making something that could be used for that year and the following years, and to also sit there between the events so people can kind of get excited for the next event coming up?
Yeah, I think definitely like doing a lot of research on Art Basel and seeing the whole process of things like how many booths do we need, what kind of art is gonna be exhibited there, how many pieces, how many rooms, like to really ask before we actually start the design. We have to ask so many questions to our client, do a lot of research on previous exhibitions in Art Basel, for example, and to kind of come up with a concrete conclusion of what are we gonna take, what's gonna work, how are we gonna transform that into space, and then we start adding those colors, we start adding those shapes. Is it gonna be a futuristic design? Is it gonna be a historical design that's kind of has a lot of history there? What kind of design do we want? What kind of colors do we want? Who are the people that are going to join? Is it because when you're designing for young people is different than when you're designing to older people? So really to focus on who the user is, and here comes the user experience. So how are they going to move? Are they going to teleport from one place to another? Do you have a menu in your hand where you can like see a map right in front of you and go to one fair and then go to another? Or is it like an open world system? So it's really just like answering all these important questions before entering the design. And then just like, creating and experimenting on Blender, creating those shapes, and then adding those animations. For example, do we want platforms that are moving? Do we want clouds that are moving? Is there elevators? Is there stairs? So to really, just like come up with a whole modular system that also work whenever we want to add more art pieces and more galleries and other in the next years as well. So yeah, I think it's a whole system that should really work.
And beyond kind of events, education, you kind of mentioned, I guess marketing is there. Can you tell us about some of the other use cases? I know you've done some things in VR and healthcare. Is that like is that to calm people down before like an operation or something, almost like a meditative experience? And yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm working also with a company called Sync VR. They're amazing. They're working like a bridge between XR and healthcare. And what we do basically in Sync VR is it really depends on what the nature of the experience is. Is it like, you know, to relax the user, to like take them on a meditative journey, or is it actually like a physical experience where they have to do those kind of you know, physical activities like rehabilitation of shoulder or of like understanding, you know, your body more. So it really depends on that, but it's both. It's both meditative and mental experiences to help the user, or it could also be, you know, physical. And yeah, it's fun to like see how patients are doing with those experiences. Are they benefiting from it? And the latest studies that were shown, like, yeah, patients are really enjoying them. The doctors also, like, it's creating more interaction between doctor and patient. So yeah, it's really cool.
Amazing. And finally, what is the next sort of impossible project that you're excited to tackle?
So I think I would have to go back to the first thing that ever got me into VR and AR, which is concerts. I would
Mm.
love to design a virtual concert or a virtual festival where we also add music and dancing, and to really just like enjoy the virtual world and understand how we can also have fun in those virtual worlds as well as we can enjoy in reality. Like when I was growing up, I didn't go to concerts much in Lebanon, so
Yeah.
I imagine having those headsets back then and being able to, you know, teleport and take myself into like a concert in New York City, for example, or Paris,
Wow.
and to actually give that option to people to just dance and have fun and to listen to
Mhm.
music with other users in real time, I think would be super fun.
Do you think it will be possible to have like what is the difference between making a kind of fake world versus, you know, the real world of like, you know, a festival in New York? Like, and how would you balance those two things together so you still get the energy of the real event happening?
I think that's the whole thing. Like, maybe, so it depends if we want it to look realistic. That means we would have to like have, for example, 360 cameras in the
Mhm.
concert as it happening in real life, and to
Mhm.
kind of show the users kind of like a video, but they also interact with other users who are joining from a headset. So that would be an example if it's like a real concert in reality. But there's many concerts that they already started doing. For example, on Fortnite, there was an Ariana Grande concert. There
Mhm.
was a Travis Scott concert where it was absolutely just like virtual and immersive. And that's the beauty of those worlds, because they kind of link the space to the lyrics, to the singer, to the user. So it's like you're actually seeing, for example, Ariana Grande in front of you dancing, and you're just like dancing with her. Like that's really interesting, I think, like
Yeah.
to not be like limited by the whole huge crowd of people next to you, but actually like be in front of the artist himself or herself.
Super exciting. Great. So I guess I'll hand it over to my audience if anyone has any questions. Gabriella, thank you so much for joining us. And how are you doing on a Friday? I think. And are there any questions that we haven't asked you? Cool. Well, I think, you know, you've done a great job of, you know, running through, keeping it real, all of the possibilities. I would love to work with you on a concert if I get, if I meet someone who, you know, is in the music world who's looking to do that, I'll definitely point them in your direction. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It's been fantastic.
Thank you, Frankie. It's always super interesting having a conversation with you, and you always have amazing ideas. So I always look forward to collaborating with you, and some of my favorite spaces are designed alongside of you. So yeah, here's some more not keeping it real spaces. And thank
Awesome.
you guys for the comments.
Thank you so much and have a lovely weekend.
Have a lovely weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Ciao.